So the Globe and Mail wrote a headline: Canada's unemployment rate rises to 5.8% as job gains fail to offset population surge. Statistics Canada released its November labor force survey on Friday, which showed the jobless rate rose to 5.8%. The economy added a modest 25,000 jobs, slightly surpassing forecasters' expectations, but trailing behind the pace of population growth. RBC's assistant chief economist said the increase hasn't been that large to date, but it is the kind of increase that typically you only see at the start of a labor market downturn. So, what I find extremely interesting in that is the use of the word population growth instead of immigration.
Yeah.
Because it's like we know that this population growth isn't coming from
people turning 18. Sure, there's some.
It's not baby boomer 2.0 here. So it's one of those things where, to me, it seems like it's a completely manageable situation.
It is.
But we continue to put bad policy in place, which we then see the negative effects of.
There's a couple things I would say about this. Like, first, there's a few other statistics that I remember from reading that kind of stuck out to me. One was that the average age of employment went up 77,700 years. So that means that a lot more young people lost their jobs than older people, which to me sort of signifies a bit of a problem in that your young people are just staying home, giving up. They can't really afford to live the dream, as I said earlier. That's definitely part of the problem. You know, the other issue, like you touched on, was this immigration thing, where they keep turning a blind eye and saying this isn't going to be a problem. This is just the way society has to go and everything's fine. But what that report said was that they need to be driving 50,000 jobs a month in Canada to keep pace with the immigration. That's what they need to do, which is almost impossible, especially considering we went down going into the holiday season, which is crazy because usually gig work picks up like mad, you know what I mean? And things slow down in January.
To your point, one of the largest sectors that drove that unemployment rate was retail and stuff. So
Right.
You think about, especially to your point about holidays, it's like this is the busiest time of year for retail and they're laying people off.
Even scarier. And so we're not going to be able to keep up with this at the rate that we're currently going. You know, they said, hey, well, 15,000 new jobs came for construction. That was their point. That's a good point, except we're still below the numbers we had in January last year for construction. So we're still not even square on the year. The only thing that's done well over the last 6 months rather, has been the public sector. They've gone up 2.3%, which is just another tax burden on society. But there's a couple issues here, right? So first one is this. If the primary increase in your population is coming from immigration and 6 out of 10 can't find consistent work over the last 2 years, that's a long track record to look, 6 out of 10. And they continue to have these problems. What does that do to society? It doesn't just mean people are unemployed. It means that the government now has to pay them to be here. That's a big problem. You see, when an 18-year-old can't find work, they just stay home with their parents. They're not as big a drain on society, you know, but when you're having this mass immigration and 6 out of 10 can't find work, what are you doing? You're just creating more stress on you're just creating more stress on the economy from the taxpayers. So this is a bit of a double whammy. Not only is it unemployment, it's a substantial burden on society. Here's the other thing that I have a problem with. And I'm seeing this more and more, and this is kind of why I mentioned the thing about the increase in age. I think we're doing some dangerous stuff these days in the media and sort of signaling that people can't keep up with their bills anymore because they're no longer on stimulus checks. And that's what they're saying in the media. So they're kind of normalizing it, or they're priming us saying, well, if you had a stimulus check, everything would be fine. Everything would be okay. And you're seeing a lot of these young people that are seeing that and reading that and believing that, and the life that they know is, I get money to stay home. So even though you're seeing these numbers go up and now you're seeing the problem with immigration and we're already paying these people to stay home and not do work anyway, I think we're walking closer and closer to Trudeau's platform speech for 2025, which is going to be universal basic income. So the numbers don't look good, but I think what's going to happen is the government's creating a problem. The government is doing what the government does. The government is creating a problem by driving immigration and making unemployment continue to go up. And then what they're going to do is they're going to provide you with the solution, right? By giving you universal basic income. Now, the other thing they're doing that's making it hard is entrepreneurship is dying in this country. So no small businesses, which contribute to a large portion of the jobs in this country, continues to go down. It went down 0.9%. It's going to continue to go down. People can't work for themselves anymore. It's unsustainable in this particular economy. So the government just continues to create this bigger and bigger problem. And when you throw more and more people in from an immigration perspective, these numbers just get worse and worse. And the only way to fix it is to give people money. And the only way to get money is if you vote for Trudeau.
Luckily, I think the opposition to Trudeau is one of the few people that would be able to debunk the narrative that universal basic income is a good thing for our youth, especially just considering the economic dominoes that are going to fall and just crumble as soon as you start instituting that policy.
I can do it. Put me on the fucking stage.
Yeah.
I'll shred that thing apart.
Yeah. So I am hopeful that at least I think Polyev is one of those guys that can stand on a stage and not just explain to the boomers who already would be opposed to just handing things out to free,
for sure,
like your kind of classic conservative would be able to, but that is also going to be able to put that messaging to the younger people and say, no, look, this is not in your best interest. I know it seems nice because it solves some short-term issues that, you know, you're dealing with today or tomorrow.
Right.
But we got to think about the economy 5, 10, 20 years from now.
Sure.
And further driving unemployment and all of this kind of stuff. It's great to see Rogan starting to change his tune on it, because Rogan was a big fan of UBI for the longest time until he saw the effect that stimulus checks had during COVID.
Right.
And I saw it as well, man, where like, so for instance, I went on CERB for a couple months throughout the pandemic, and it felt like a hit to my pride at the start. I didn't even want to take it, but then I used it to learn videography stuff. I was like, okay, I'm going to leave the industry I'm in because fuck, this thing's going to shit, hospitality.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not managing restaurants anymore. This is a done game. So I'll go on stimulus for 6 months and I'll learn this, and then I'll essentially catapult myself in a new direction, which has paid off. It's funny that I'm arguing against something like stimulus checks and UBIs because it helped me significantly. But what I also saw was that during that period, none of my other friends did that shit, man.
99 times out of 100. That's the problem.
And I told them all to do that. I was like, look, you have a blessing right now, essentially, where you can take on a new skill, start a business, do something that now puts you in a better state. And that's the whole argument for UBI. But then you just see human nature, which is, well, okay, I can just take this check and, all right, well, I can just play video games for 12 hours a day now, or I can drink 5 days a week.
Oh, yeah. Get after it.
Like,
It's the path of least resistance. I think the issue, UBI is easy to shred apart. There's just no money for it. And whenever no matter how you skin it, it just comes out of the pockets of taxpayers, or you just print more money, which drives inflation. Whole thing's just a whole mess. It's not going to work. You get that idea, though, where it's like, hey, we're going to give you money to get on your feet, and you're going to go learn a new skill, and you're going to become excellent. Except that if you look at the legislation that they're trying to put through, it says that no one on UBI has to learn any new skills or even consider contributing to the employment market in any way. Basically, they're saying, well, that's its own form of racism. What are you talking about? So they're not trying to push the idea that you're using it to catapult yourself into the future. That they're not even, it's in the bill itself, which to me is a big problem. Like, if you're not even painting it that way, like, hey, here's a 3-year deal. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the strategy. We're going to start here. We're going to wean everybody off. Here's what's got to happen. You got to meet these benchmarks. You got to go take these courses. Here's how we're going to reestablish society and give you a leg up because we put you in such a bad spot. Now you got me. You want to do this for 3 to 4 years? And here's your plan. Here's how it looks. Even if we have to print money and do this and this and this, it's going to contribute to society in these ways by building critical infrastructure in these other ways, by contributing to entrepreneurship, where they're incentivized to stay in Canada and build businesses and do, domestic manufacturing and production and do all these things. Now you've got a plan. But that's not the plan. The plan is to just give free money away, and that everybody has a right to it, which is total bullshit.
Yeah.
That's not the way this should work. But here's my concern. You mentioned that Pierre's going to get on stage and he's going to say, hey guys, this isn't better for the long run. This is not going to help society, not going to help Canada, not going to help you in the next 5 to 10 years. It's just going to be a short-term solution. But when you're talking to a voter base that are all victims, right? And the last few years has been so hard that they all feel like they've got it worse than anybody else in the world, and you give them an opportunity to get out of that, what they're going to do is they're going to go, I got to get mine. Fuck these guys. I'm going to vote for it so that I can get enough money, and then whatever happens behind me, we'll deal with that then. I think that we're breeding those type of thinkers. And that's my concern, is not enough people think the way you and I do and would use it to their advantage. They would just take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So That's what I see. That's what I see happening, and that's sort of what I think these numbers sort of signify.
And something I do try to keep in mind, because it's very easy to become resentful towards those types of people that say don't apply themselves and just kind of give up. And I mean, don't get me wrong, that's my base instinct to react on how to react to those types of people in these situations. But part of me also understands it from a lens of, if I'm going to go work 45 hours, 50 hours a week, I know people that work 50 hours a week and are dirt poor. Now, could they change some things about their lifestyle? Sure. 100%. That wouldn't make them, say, necessarily dead broke. But even if they stop and change their lifestyle in certain positive ways, they're not getting a house. They're not going to be able to have a family on that. Like, so I can kind of see essentially how these people have just become demoralized, where it's like, okay, even if I go put my nose in the dirt and work hard for 50 hours a week, I'm still struggling. So what's the fucking point? I might as well throw my feet up then. And it's like,
no, I agree with you in the sense that not everybody has got the same capacity or capability to pull their socks up and get the job done.
mm-hmm.
I'm aware that people do need assistance, and I do think that there are programs that exist to help certain people. But to your point, that problem that person has that's willing to work their ass off and go get it done, and they're just not making enough money to get through, that's also a government-created problem.
That's what, yeah.
And that's it. Like, these people, this liberal ideology just continues to create these bigger problems for people where working hard and, being, a loyal Canadian is not good enough anymore. And they're going to convince them that it's somehow the fault of, I don't know, society, conservatives, Republicans, MAGA, whatever words they choose to use at that time. But the reality is, the Liberals have been in charge of Canada for the last 8 years, and we are where we are because of the decisions that they've made. So again, this is the fault of Trudeau and his liberal regime. That's what this is. So for people to just go, well, you know what? I'm going to trust him this time because now he's got it right. Give your head a shake. I'm sorry, but like, you don't have to have the same capability as the rest of us. That's fine. Or as us, or whatever it is. But you should be able to point out a pattern. Everything this guy has done since he's gotten into power has just made this country worse. And this, the cherry on top. So my wife and I talk about, staying here in Canada now, having a family, being around our parents as they're getting older, and that's all great. But if Trudeau gets into power again and implements this universal basic income, everything else that was on the table as to why we would stay here doesn't matter anymore. We have to go. That's how much we feel like if he gets elected again and implements this system, how bad the country's going to be. That was kind of a broken sentence, but you know what I mean.
When I was talking about people being demoralized and understanding how they can't go into work, or why they don't want to go into work, because they don't feel like there's even any upside to it. Again, I totally agree that is a government-created issue in the first place. I mean, even just the fact that the average person, if you have a salary of $55,000, you're essentially paying 42% in taxes off the hop. Like, it's like, this isn't sustainable.
And for what?
Exactly.
Ugh.
So I can get why these people just become defeated, but I don't think it's a good mentality. I don't think people should have it. They should choose the alternative, where what you're saying about the victim mindset. You should have the victor mindset. You should be able to look at a set of circumstances and go, all right, I need to do X, Y, Z in order to overcome this obstacle. That's the only mindset that is worth having.
Yeah.
But I do fear that we're going to just see these people that haven't taken on that mindset of personal responsibility to just, look to that government to solve more problems for them. And I mean, hopefully that's not the case. It does seem to be looking like more people are losing faith in the government, even in Canada here. So, I mean, that's always a positive.
My hope is that less than 51% feel that way.
Yeah.
That's it. That's where I'm at right now, man. I'm like, all right, well, as long as just over half of us feel this way, maybe we'll be okay.